Hey, it's Matthew from the WeWeb team, and today we're going to be running through how you can utilize page generations with the brand new Copilot. So let's jump right in. Now to get started, Copilot needs just a small amount of information about what it is you want to build. So as an example, let's say I'm building an app for salon owners to manage their salons, and I want it to be minimalistically designed, I want it to be mobile responsive, and first of all, I'll be building the dashboard page. So I can pass in a prompt with some general information about the application and also just some contextual information that Copilot can utilize to help tailor whatever page it is I'm building. So our dashboard has been generated, and for a first run, this is a great foundation to build from. But now the beauty of Copilot is that we can iterate with it and have it make whatever changes we want. So for example, I forgot to mention at the start that our salon is actually called WeSalon, and so I'll ask Copilot to make the necessary changes. And I'll also need some way in the application to visit different pages. So we'll need some kind of way to navigate. And we can ask Copilot to make the changes. And we can see Copilot has now made those changes. They've updated the branding to be WeSalon, and they've now added this left navigation bar so we can navigate to different pages in the future as we build our application. Now there's one last nitpicky thing to improve, and it's this main content section. You can see it has a grey background, and for design purposes I would like this to take up the entire page, as currently it's only taking up about 70%. And I can ask Copilot to do this, so I can click onto the section itself. We can see here that main content is now passed in as context to Copilot, and I can ask Copilot to update this so that its height takes up the full possible available space. And we can see now that Copilot has updated the main content section, so it takes up the entire available height. So that was just a quick example of what you can do with page generations, regardless of whether or not you know exactly what you want to be on the page. But what if you have a much more fleshed out understanding of what needs to exist in your application? Maybe you already know the page by page breakdown and exactly what content will exist on those pages. Well, Copilot can still help you build a very solid foundation that you can iterate from. So back in Copilot now, I have a prompt pasted into the chat window that I'm about to send Copilot. And basically here, I've got some contextual information about my app that I want to build. So I have the planned pages. This way it just helps Copilot, again, with some contextual information that it can use in navigation sections or on the page content. I want Copilot to build the dashboard. So here I'm just providing some contextual information about what I actually want included on the dashboard, like a screenshot of the day's metrics, the schedule, some notifications, and some customer insights. And finally, I'm giving Copilot some design considerations. So what is the persona that this app is being built for? What is the rough color palette that should be used? The fonts, and things like how mobile responsive it should be. So I can send this to Copilot, and Copilot can work its magic. So our page is now generated, and we have a good starting point for what we want our dashboard to be. Now, if I look back at the prompt I gave Copilot in terms of what should be on the page, so a daily snapshot, we have that, we have our metrics, quick actions, we have that at the top, we have today's schedule here, staff availability we have here, but the one thing that Copilot did miss off is the customer insights section, and this can happen. I gave quite a large prompt to Copilot, and sometimes it will miss off certain things if you give it a lot of information. So I can just ask it again to include customer insights. So there we go, it's generated a section for our customer insights, but I can see that it hasn't quite given it adequate spacing from the section above it. Now I could ask Copilot to change this, but of course each prompt to Copilot uses tokens, so for such a small change, it makes sense to just do this manually. So I can check here what the margin is for the section at the very top. I can see it's 24, so I can just add it to this section so that we have that spacing. Makes sense to save tokens. And so the last thing I really need here is a section for navigation. So we gave all our pages to Copilot at the top. I won't give them again. I'll just ask Copilot to make sure there's a navigation section for those pages. So there we go. It's created our left navigation section on the left here. And just to double check, it correctly used our pages. Here we had a login and sign up. This wouldn't come from the navigation on the left, but we have a dashboard, calendar, bookings, clients, services, staff, settings, reports. So it's correctly mirrored what we asked to originally in this left navigation. And nicely, if I put it into preview mode, we can see here this notifications icon in the top right has a drop down associated with it, and then likewise with the user avatar. So these were just some examples of how you can use page generations to save you a ton of time. And because you can iterate with Copilot, there's a ton of customization and flexibility around the generations. Now, one thing we didn't touch on here is that Copilot can actually take in images. So if you have a website or an application or a certain design element that you want to recreate, you can actually pass in an image of that element, section, page, whatever it might be, and Copilot can recreate it. And finally, one other piece of functionality that Copilot has that we didn't touch on here is its ability to generate custom coded components, meaning you could ask Copilot to create completely custom components such as charts or calendars. We'll touch on all of these things in a future video, but for now, we can't wait to see what you create with Copilot.